Thank you for that reminder, Emily.
You're welcome. We'll get started here in a few minutes. We're just going to give everyone a little bit of time to log in.
Everybody join us. Come on in here.
Yeah, feel free to add in the chat where you're joining us from. Say hello and tell us where you're joining from.
What you're gonna be for Halloween. Hello from Illinois. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Laura from San Diego. Julie from Milwaukee. Wow, everyone's all over.
Jose from New York. Hello.
Hola.
Give
Yeah,
it one
everybody.
moment.
I have really bad eyesight. I should have grabbed my glasses. I'm like squinting at the chat box. It's all good though.
Hello, Diana from Georgia. Thanks, Jose. He says, I have to come and support you, Rebecca. All right, let's get started.
All right, welcome to Backbones, Women, and SCI Health Talks. If you're new to Backbones, our organization is committed to helping people with spinal cord injuries and similar disabilities find connection and community. We do this by hosting events both in person and virtually, by facilitating one-on-one peer support and providing resources to individuals with spinal cord injuries and their families when they are trying to navigate life post-injury. I encourage you to check out our website at www.backbonesonline.com to find more information about our programs. We are a community-led program that seeks to bring awareness and education about women's health in the context of SCI. Our topics and format are the results of 2 community listening sessions. To continue to be community-led and directed, we will send you an email tomorrow with a short survey as well as a copy of this recorded webinar, which we welcome you to share freely and widely. The survey will be about 3 to 5 questions and should only take a few minutes to complete. We thank you in advance for filling this out. Tonight's webinar is being recorded. Closed captioning is available by clicking on the live transcript bottom within the Zoom screen. In addition to this recorded webinar, we also have a private, only for women, small discussion group to unpack this conversation tonight and share personal experiences and support. If you are interested in a small group, please go to our website at backbonesonline.com, the program tab. The link for this program will also be dropped in the chat shortly. I will introduce our 2 amazing guest speakers here shortly. We will have 10 to 15 minute Q&A at the end of the webinar. You are welcome to submit questions for our speakers anonymously. You can also type them directly into the chat if you are comfortable with that. I will read any anonymously submitted questions at the end. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Cody Unser and Rebecca Torres. After becoming paralyzed at the age of 12 due to an autoimmune disorder called transverse myelitis, Cody Unser, along with her mother, Shelley, founded the Cody Unser First Step Foundation. Through her foundation, she established Cody's Great Scuba Adventure, which uses scuba diving as a therapeutic and psychological tool for people with disabilities. Cody holds a degree in biopolitics and health policy. She is passionate about healthcare for women with disabilities. Rebecca Torres was paralyzed in a car accident as a teenager. She started Backbones after realizing that years of interaction and friendship with others living with spinal cord injuries made a significant impact on her life. Rebecca wanted to ensure that others, especially those newly injured, had access to resources, information, and the same type of support she had. Thank you so much for being here tonight, ladies. And I will now hand the webinar over to the two of you.
Thank you, Emily. I'm going to also put Cody for spotlight now. Thank you so much for that intro, Emily. And Cody, thanks for joining me today in this conversation. I'm really excited to talk to you about self-esteem and body image following our injuries. We are both women who were injured fairly young, and I think that comes along with a lot of things, processing body positivity and self-esteem. Excuse me. But it's, first of all, I want to go back to us. We know each other from a very long time ago. And it's been a long time since I've seen you in person. And we actually met scuba diving together. I don't know if you want to say a little bit about that.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you so much, REVECA, for inviting me to talk on this topic today. I can't remember what year it was, but it was definitely when my foundation had begun starting Cody's Great Scuba Adventure, and which is an adaptive quality of life program using scuba diving. So REVECA was able to join on one of our trips along with one of the instructors that both her and I both know. So we met each other. We were young at that time too. And so over the years, like, I think we sort of stayed in touch, but lost touch. But now I'm just so happy. I think both you and I are so compassionate and also determined to make a difference for people with disabilities, but also women with disabilities. And this topic doesn't get talked enough about. So yeah, it's definitely an intimate discussion that I'm really interested in having. Awesome.
Yeah, and you're right. It's not a topic that is talked about openly often. And especially, when I was sharing this, promoting this event, I had a couple of people reach out and say, oh gosh, I wish I would have had this when I was younger. So I'm glad that we're talking about it. And I'd love to start, just if you could share a little bit about, your injury. I know it was transverse myelitis, and just sort of what it was like for you when you were 12 years old, and this life-changing thing, and how did that really impact on your self-esteem and your outlook and your future?
Yeah, great question. So I think what's unique about both of our stories is that we both were injured when we were young. I've heard of other different stories and perspectives from not only women, but other people with disabilities who get injured later in life. So I think you and I have sort of a unique perspective, because we know what we know now because we were young and we were able to adapt, I think, a lot easier to our situation, even though it was really hard and difficult, of course. But yeah, so for those who don't know me and my story and how I became paralyzed, so I was 12 years old. I grew up in an auto racing family, so everything was like fast paced, and we were always in sports and on go-karts and four-wheelers and snowmobiles. So I was always very active as a kid. Like, my body just moved when I wanted it to move. There wasn't any thinking about it. So on February 5th, 1999, my life completely changed. I woke up like any other day. I was in the 6th grade and got ready for school, went to school. And then I had basketball practice after. So I was in basketball practice, had a hard time catching my breath. Then I got a really, really bad headache. And so the school called 911. They laid me down in the locker rooms, and that's when my left leg went completely numb and wasn't moving. My right leg was like tingling. So in a matter of 20, 30 minutes, my own immune system attacked my spinal cord. So it's a kind of different injury than from yours. But nonetheless, it was really scary. Long story short, I ended up at Barrows Neurological Institute in Phoenix for my rehabilitation. So learning how to live my life in a wheelchair, learning how to move my paralyzed body on mats, stacking cones. I don't know if you did that in rehab, but stacking cones from one side of the mat to the other, just very kind of, yes, it's extremely important, but just mentally and emotionally, it was sort of degrading because I felt very helpless and small, and really depressed and sad, and just how am I supposed to be okay with this? How is this, and my family, like every family, I think, who goes through paralysis, they want you to be positive and, everything's going to be okay. Don't worry, you'll figure it out. But I pretty much was kind of like, I know I'll get there at some point in time, but for right now, I am going to be angry. I am going to be sad. It's a loss. You've just lost not only the ability to walk or run, but also just the bladder, the bowel issues. I found very intimidating and overwhelming. So it was, how am I supposed to live with this new body? And I found, especially when it comes to body image, and being young and paralyzed, I was really embarrassed. I don't know about you, REVECA, but like on my outings at rehab, like we would have permission my family took me out of the rehab hospital that I was in, or we had recreational therapy where we actually had to go out into the world and learn how to go up and down curbs and in and out of restaurants. And I just hated being in public. I felt embarrassed. I felt ugly, deformed. I knew I was different. I didn't like being stared at. So it was embarrassing. I wanted to just hide away forever and never want to do anything. Like that was sort of my reality. What about you, those kind of early days?
Yeah, mine was a little bit different because I sort of pretended that everything was okay, and I didn't pretend, but I wanted to be that positive. What you said, everyone expects you to be positive and to you know move forward and just smile, right? And I did that, a lot. Our family had a lot of family support, and I had friend support and community, the school, the church, everything, and I did that a lot for people, and I didn't really realize that I was struggling with adapting to my body and with the way that I looked until many years later, like looking back and thinking like, wow, I was depressed. I was angry. Like I did wear like giant clothes because I felt like I didn't want my body to be seen. Um, just all these different things that I did to sort of mask that I really was struggling. And I think that it would have been nice to um, feel okay with not being okay, and especially with the bowel and bladder stuff. It was something that it took me years to even talk about. That sometimes I pee myself, sometimes I poop myself. Like, what is that happens, and I was not able to share that, not even with friends, because it was
Embarrassing.
it was embarrassing, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, my mom literally had to call my friend's parents and say, Cody needs to go on a sleepover. She needs to go to the movie. She needs to get out. And I was afraid of having bladder and bowel accidents because it did occur at home. And even though, like, even if I was out at a restaurant with my family and had to go calf, I felt coming back that everybody in the restaurant knew I had a calf. Like, it was just, it's hard. And plus, like, once my legs started atrophying, that was really hard for me, even though I was 12 and, I really liked my legs, like, strong. But once they started to atrophy, I stopped wearing shorts. Because that's not how the world views sexy legs. Like, that's not beautiful, right? So that was one of my biggest and my first kind of initial kind of things that I had to overcome were my legs.
I think that's common for a lot of people. And, I think I did that a lot too. I did not wear, shorts or skirts because of the same thing. Like, I just felt like my legs didn't look the way that was normal to me. And I know there's, for me though, I think one of the things that changed my outlook significantly was when I got back into regular clothes. Like, for a long time I was wearing sweatpants and sweatshirts because you're in physical therapy, and obviously that makes sense to wear clothing that is more comfortable and flexible. But I found that I was making myself or allowing myself to wear clothing that would make it easier for my caregiver to change me, or for my mother to change me, rather than what I wanted to wear. And when I came to like a realization that like I have that autonomy to say, this is what I want to wear. And if it takes a little bit longer because it has more buttons, it takes a little bit longer, right? But that will give me the confidence to like wear, to feel like myself, and to feel like I looked
right
like myself.
Yeah, I totally understand that. Also, like, for me, like, I wear pull-ups pretty much all the time because the fear of having a bladder or bowel accident. I've learned to sort of, my sexy lingerie are my pull-ups, right? So I, even on dates, or even when it comes to being intimate with somebody, this is who I am. And you either like it or you don't. And if you don't, then bye. It's getting comfortable enough, but that took me a really long time. I will say, I was not comfortable wearing pull-ups. I would have to go secretly hide and change out of it, but I think a lot of other women deal with that too. Like, how can we be okay with ourselves when society already has a definition of what's sexy and beautiful, even for women in general, even for able-bodied women? There's like this standard, and the fashion industry completely kind of rules that. And it's hard. It's like, how do we navigate this, especially when we're disabled, right? Our bodies are not normal. It's really tough. It's hard.
I remember a funny story of when we went scuba diving. I remember one conversation. We were sitting in a van, I think, waiting for them to load chairs, and you said to me that you were going to design sexy underwear that was waterproof. How is that going?
No, that idea came and went. No, I mean, over the years, I've seen like adaptive fashion, and also using medical devices such as, pull-ups, or those who wear diapers, just making it, either changing the color from like that medical pink or white to like black or red. It doesn't take much to make a woman with a disability feel sexy, because it really does make a difference in like confidence, for sure. But yeah, no, I've left that project to other people. But yeah, no, I think when it comes to sort of self-esteem, it takes people, everybody has their own journey with paralysis and spinal cord injury. Like, I am a Christopher and Dana Reeve peer mentor. And so I get matched up with people who are newly injured or want some more support. And those who are newly injured, like, I tell them, I don't have all the answers. I mean, yes, I've been paralyzed for 22 years, but I'm not here to tell you how it's magically going to happen overnight and you're going to figure everything out, from getting a job to learning how to drive to learning to having sex to transferring in and out of a shower. You know, I think both you and I, like, you know, it's taken years. It takes everybody on their own time frame, you know. And perfection, no one's perfect, right?
And I think that's a really important point to make, that everyone's on their own timeline, right? And sometimes we tend to compare ourselves to someone, you know, well, this person is, you know, moving their arm better, or this person has better bladder control than I do. And that's, again, like you said, regardless of if you have a disability or not. I think all of us compare ourselves to our peers. But, you know, one thing that has helped me as well is just to have a little bit of compassion for myself and to say, like, it's okay if you're not there. And I'm going to do this on my own timeline. And you're right, it is hard to do, yeah, and I think it also makes you, like, be able to be happy for other people when they're, you know, achieving things as well, that even if you're not there yet sometimes. So.
Right. Yeah, it's funny that you say the, you know, comparison, because not only, I mean, early on, I started comparing myself to my friends who were able-bodied and walking around, especially when it came to like school dances. You know, just picking out a dress, you know, it was easier for them. Even to get into a prom dress, you know, it was easier for them. But I always compared myself to them because, you know, when it came to like attracting the opposite sex, like in high school, you know, my friends were able to shake more of their body than I was. And I found myself really diving deep in a dark hole because of that. And then, especially now, I think with social media, I mean, it's been all over the news how, you know, young girls are comparing themselves and becoming anorexic because they're not, you know, where they should be, you know, when it comes to society's view of beauty. But I think it happens in a disability community a lot too. When you see, I mean, I see like other girls with flatter tummies and they're paralyzed, but their paralysis is lower. So they've got more mobility, like in their core, and they're able to do more. And so I still find myself, you know, kind of comparing, oh, well, I'm not like that. And I'm paralyzed just like her. But you do have to realize, like, we're all so different. You know, you and I are at, you know, we're paralyzed at different levels and are able to do more or less than each other, but that shouldn't determine your worth, right? Like it shouldn't impact how you feel about yourself. But it's so hard to like tell yourself that you're beautiful when you have society around you that says, no, you're not, you know, like it's hard. It's really challenging.
What do you, like, thinking back and you know, did you have support? You mentioned your family, you know, as you grew up into a woman, an adult woman, you know, there was family. Was there healthcare professionals or other women with spinal cord injuries or role models that you felt like there was that support to help you through that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my mom's my hero. I had an awesome relationship with my mom. So she, you know, kind of helped me through a lot of things, especially like my first date with the guy that I ended up losing my virginity to, Freddie. On our date, we were in the car, I was driving, and I started actually having a bowel accident, and you could smell it. Like there was no way around it. And I was trying so hard to roll down windows and oh my God. But long story short, when I came back to the house to get cleaned up, I was crying with my mom, like, no one's ever going to love me. Why am I even trying? This is ridiculous. Like, this is, you know, So my mom is definitely helped me in those really hard, intimate moments. But I was able to meet, and she's like an aunt now. Her name's Marilyn Hamilton, and she started Quickie wheelchairs. She sold it to Sunrise Medical, but early on, I think it was like a year after I was paralyzed, I met her, and I was just blown away. Like, she's paralyzed, yet she owns her own company. She had her nails done. She was the boss. Like, I found she was just a really big inspiration for me. And we talked about a bunch of things like bladder issues and stuff like that. And she really changed my life when it came to sort of being a woman. What does it mean to be a woman and be a disabled woman at that in today's world? And she really kind of challenged me. I had handlebars on the back of my wheelchair at the time. And I remember her saying, Cody, are you going to let people push you around your whole life? Like, you got to get rid of those handlebars. Like, that's, you can use your arms, so use them, be independent. Like, she definitely taught me to be independent as much as possible. So what about for you?
Yeah, I think there isn't a lot of women that I interacted with early on. But I remember when I started school at community college, and one of the counselors at the Disability Resource Center was a woman with a disability. She used a power chair. She is Mexican like me, so she's like a brown woman in a wheelchair. And
Yeah.
I was like, wow, and she talked to, she welcomed me to the school and was like, if you need accessibility, anything regarding accessibility. She showed me pictures of her journey of like back in the day that she was protesting to get lifts on buses, and a picture of her getting arrested. And I was like, this woman is badass. Like, I want to be like her. Like, I want to like change the world. And she was, she's always been like someone that I keep in the back of my mind, that like she was the first woman I met in a chair that, and it really made a significant impact. So I'm glad that we are having conversations like this, because there has got to be many young girls out there that are looking for other women, and not just young girls, all of us.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's funny that you say that, because like, I remember early on too, I didn't want to hang around anybody with a disability. I remember I didn't want to be part of the sick people. Like, that's me. Yes, I know that's me, but I don't want to be associated with anybody with a disability. I wanted to just isolate. I was not happy and just really depressed, because it sucks that you have to feel that way, but society kind of makes you feel that way. And I do hope that I think there's a lot more women in wheelchairs that are making a difference, that are out there on social media, that are out there at different festivals that I've been to. So we are around, but especially for those who are just in this in the beginning, it's hard, because you're trying to figure everything out medically, and kind of leaving the emotions on the back burner. But it creeps up, but like you said, like, be compassionate towards yourself and be patient. Like, you're not going to figure it out overnight. It's going to take time. You're on no one's timeline but your own. And yeah, like, it really just does take time and experiences. I mean, definitely challenging yourself, even when it's scary. Like the sleepover when I was young, like the sleepover was scary because I was afraid of having a bladder accident and being made fun of. And it was scary. But once I did that, other challenges started coming into my mind. And yeah, once you start living your life, you'll figure it out, I guess.
I talked a little bit a while ago about like when I put jeans on for the first time, or like regular clothes, like that was a pivotal moment for me. And there's been others, but do you have a moment where you think that, or like a moment or something that maybe shifted your perspective where you were like, I'm going to be okay, that you switched from being angry to like being like, I'm going to be okay and I'm going to live my best life?
Yeah, I mean, scuba diving. Scuba diving was my answer because yes, it didn't have to do anything with the body, but yes, it did. I mean, I was out of my wheelchair, doing something with my family, you know, that I didn't think I was going to be able to do. And I didn't feel paralyzed. Like it just kind of opened my eyes to, you know, all right, what am I complaining about? What am I complaining or so worried about? Like, I can figure this out. If I can figure out how to go down 100 feet, there's nothing that's going to stop me from accomplishing, like going off to college. Like, I know a lot of people with disabilities are afraid to leave home and go off to school and live in a dorm for the first time and be completely independent or with a caregiver. You know, I think, again, challenging yourself at different moments and just trying something new, I think it definitely helps gain confidence. Like, all right, I can do this. I can totally do this, you know? So
I love that you said that, because that just made me think of things that I've done too that I was very intimidated to do.
yeah.
But I went and I did it, and then like, you know, things changed. And one of those was doing yoga for the first time. And like
wow.
I had a friend who kept encouraging me to go, and I was like, yeah, like I just, you know, kept saying yeah. I was curious, but I didn't really think that I would be able to go into a class and be around all these bendy people and, you know, do
Right.
yoga. I'm like, I'm paralyzed. What am I going to do in that room? And
Right. What pose am I going to get into? Right.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so she contacted the owner of this place where she was doing yoga, and he contacted me. He called me on the phone. He found me on Facebook, and he's like, come in. I'd love to work with you. I've never worked with anyone with a disability, and I don't know what I'm doing, but you know, if it works, we'll keep doing it. If you don't like it, we will try something different. And that just gave me this sense of confidence that like I was in control of that, you know, I was in control of what was going to happen. And I got there. He asked me, you know, how do I transfer you onto the floor?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, we're going to do this right now. And he's like, yeah, that's what you came here for. And I remember this quite distinctly is I said to him, you could just pick me up like under my arms and under my legs like a baby and put me on the floor. And at the end of that session, when he put me back into the chair, he said to me, next time that you describe to someone how to move you from your chair, don't describe yourself as a baby. He's like, you're not a baby. He's like, you're a grown woman. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I am a grown woman. And but yeah, I was hooked to doing yoga, and really like it made me get a sense of awareness for my body, for like parts of my body that I had ignored for a long time because of the paralysis, and realizing that like paying attention to what my body was saying, different signals. And I felt sexy, honestly, like going to yoga, I felt sexy. I felt like I was like moving my body, and I felt good about myself. And that was, and again, it was something I was really intimidated about, didn't want to do it. And then I did it, and it really completely changed my outlook on a lot of things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I actually found when I was going to college out in California, I just called just a random woman, right? And she was a yoga instructor, and her and I like worked together for the 4 years that I was out there. And I loved it too. And I felt sexy too, just being able to get on the floor and stretch out. I mean, yes, I do that on the bed too, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a total like different body awareness for sure. Like posing your body in different ways. And yeah, she had to help me with a lot of it. But I think I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
So let's talk about what are you currently struggling with, or things, and how, yeah, we're gonna get in it. Are there things that you're struggling with, and like, how do you face those challenges? Like,
okay. My biggest challenge is my tummy. Like, we paraplegics call it the paragut because I have zero control over it.
Or the quad belly.
Right. Yeah. Like
belly.
it's, yeah, I try to like squish it down, you know, like, but like, again, like I try to, yeah, you can wear Spanx and hide what your body is, but then on the other side of me is like, well, that's BS. Like I shouldn't have to hide anything that I have going on. Like I'm beautiful the way I am, you know, but it does bother me. So it's like I argue with myself back and forth, you know, 50% of the time I'm okay with it, 50% of the time I'm not okay with it. How can I hide it the best way that I can? But yeah, I mean, if I wear Spanx, that puts more pressure on my bladder. So then I'm constantly having to go to the bathroom even more, which sucks. So yeah, I mean, that's my biggest issue, I think, is sort of my paragut and how to deal with that. I will tell you, I don't wear a bikini because of it. Yeah, like it's hard because there are certain times where, like in different presentations, I talk about this dichotomy that we go through of kind of accepting ourselves but rejecting ourselves at the same time. Like I would love to walk again. Like I would love to absolutely walk again, but at the same time, why do I have to walk again? Like I'm totally fine the way I am, you know? I would say that my reason for wanting to walk again has changed over time. Like in the beginning, it was because I felt ugly and embarrassed of being different. I didn't like being different. And now my reason for wanting to walk again is because I want to actually feel my feet on the floor. It has nothing to do with my body or society or that I'm not normal. But yeah, I mean, it's really, I mean, all these kind of issues are sort of deep and emotional. But yeah, my paragut bothers me.
I'm going to agree with that too.
Yeah.
My quad belly bothers me. I also don't wear like two-piece bathing suits. I've worn them before, but I'm like, I'm not doing this again. But yeah, Jose in the chat says me too. all of us struggle with our bellies. But yeah, I think
but like, I mean, I don't know how to get beyond that, to be honest. Like, I really don't know. I don't know how to get beyond that. It's not that I'm saying that I'm not okay with my body and who I am, but yeah, there's that issue that I try to hide, right? Like, it's just, especially like if I'm dating a guy and like we're on the couch together and he kind of, you know, hugs my stomach, I always like push his hand away. Like it's, I don't know. Yeah. Tell me, REVECA, tell me, what do I do? What do we do?
You answered it earlier. You said you're on your own timeline.
Yeah.
So, no, I really think, I mean, and there's things that we can't change, right? And I think initially too, when I was first paralyzed, I thought a lot about like, why me? Why can't I change this? Or like, if only I could move my hands better, then like I would be so much happier if I could move my hands, or I'd be so much happier if I had like ab control or stuff like that. But at some point it's like, do I keep dwelling on it because it's something that's never going to change, or that I can't change? And do I dwell on it and like make myself miserable, or do I enjoy other parts of like my life that I enjoy, right? And that are where I find success or where I find happiness.
I think
And that's
control
hard
is
to do.
a really, like what you just said about control. Like, we can't control our situation, right? We're paralyzed. Um, there's no way around it. All the secondary conditions that we have to go through on a daily basis, there's no way around it. So what I mean, what I do, the sort of advice I do give is kind of definitely give yourself props and congratulations for sort of accomplishing, even if it's a little task, like putting a dish in the dishwasher, or like celebrating the small things that you're capable of doing. I think will go a long way. But yeah, control, like find things you can control and kind of embrace those activities and moments for sure. Because there's a list, honey, that I can't control. So I definitely, like my bladder, my bowels, my legs, like they spasm like crazy sometimes. And so yeah, I think that's awesome what you just said, is kind of control is a big thing.
Are there any other things that you want to share for, that you think that would make it easier for women with SCI to feel more confident, to feel self-esteem? And we're going to be taking questions soon. So if you all want to put questions in the chat or in the Q&A, please do.
I mean, I think disability is a unique experience that I have found beauty in, because there's no one like me and there's no one like you. We go through things very differently than, able-bodied people. And I try to really focus and celebrate those things. I honestly wouldn't have changed the fact that I became paralyzed. Like, I wouldn't go back and not become paralyzed if I could. Which is, I thought I would never say that. I could not imagine having another body but my own. I know that's obviously not possible, but if it were, I would not change a thing. But I think also letting people in your life, whether it's friendships or intimate relationships, that also helps, like your self-esteem. I mean, when somebody tells you, even strangers, like, oh, you're beautiful, like don't dismiss that. Don't say, oh, they're just saying that because I'm in a wheelchair. They're just recognizing, they want me to feel okay and feel be okay with myself. I mean, sometimes I get that, even just grocery shopping. They'll say, oh, you're such an inspiration or something like that. But yeah, I think definitely celebrate what you do have. Be compassionate and patient with yourself. Because yeah, it does take time. It took me probably, I would say 10 years for me to even be okay with saying I was sexy and beautiful. And yeah, I mean, these issues are hard, and I think relationships help, like friends and going out, challenging yourself. Those are some of the things that can definitely help you gain confidence, because it's the small and big things that are challenging that will help you get there.
I think that you're right with the relationships and being like open and honest with people. And I think in my experience, I did a lot of like not lying, or like working around, like saying like, I have decaf, or I have like I'm gonna have a bowel accident or something. Like, I would make up like other excuses of things that were going on. And I'm sure I probably seemed like an awkward, weird person, or like, what's going on with her? Why is she doing this suddenly? Rather than just saying like, I have to go cath. And people understand that, okay, she has to cath, we'll give her time. Or, maybe you need to go change or clean yourself up. Like, okay, we'll give you time. And it's sort of like not giving people enough credit that they will
Yeah.
stick around and be your
Yeah.
friend because
Yeah.
you pee differently. And if we really think about it, like, because I pee differently, you're not going to be my friend, or you're gonna,
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes we have these, or at least me, I had these conceptions that, or preconceptions that, like, people weren't going to accept that or be understanding, when more often than not they were. And
Yeah. It's almost like a defense mechanism. I do that too. Like if I have a bowel accident or something like that, it depends on like who I'm around, or if I'm at an event or something like that. But yeah, totally. Like you shun it as something else, something different, to make other people feel okay, but also yourself okay. But you try to make yourself feel as normal as possible. So you won't use medical terms like cathing, right? Yeah, it's a total defense mechanism for sure. I totally agree.
we have a question from Rebecca Grossman. Are there times when you feel more and less accepting of your body?
Yes. Yes, yes, hands down. I think everyone does. Let's see. For me, I don't like the way, like I said before, I don't wear a bikini because I don't like the way I look naked sitting, because my belly definitely comes out more. It protrudes more. I prefer myself laying down flat because my stomach looks flat, which is stupid. I can't believe I'm saying this. I shouldn't have to feel this way. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, there's times where, like, my mental state is better than others, and I think that reflects on how I feel um, about my body, and it definitely reflects on how I present outwardly too, because, like, I will tend to wear, more drab clothing, or, rather than actually take the time to, like, look better or feel better about myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it just kind of depends on my mental state too.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
question. Thank you for that.
we have another question from Jose. How would you ladies discuss the topic of fertility and becoming a parent?
Wow.
That's a whole nother topic that we will be addressing, but we could talk about it a little bit. I think that's a great question.
Yeah, I mean that I think that question is um it's important, but I think before that, kind of sexuality, sensuality are things that are kind of related to body image and self-esteem. So before I can get pregnant, I got to be okay with having sex with somebody and being naked. Um but I hope to be a mom someday. I definitely, I've been talking a lot about, the sexual and reproductive health care for women with disabilities. It is possible. Our healthcare world needs to kind of catch up, but um, yeah, I've heard crazy stories of moms who are paralyzed and say that their belly, it's funny that when the kids are born, they feel naturally comfortable on the mom's lap, because for 9 months they were basically sitting on the mom's lap. So I've heard stories like that. But yeah, I would love to be a mom someday.
Yeah, and I think, like Emily said in the chat, we will have another webinar on parenting in the spring. But yeah, it's something that, I love seeing right now that there's a lot of stories coming out of, like, new moms, or like their journeys on pregnancy, and because that gives me, like,
Oh,
hope that, like, oh, like, that could be me, or
yeah.
that could be, my friends, that we can have children, and we can be good moms or good parents. So
I think it kind of also goes back to that whole idea about society's view of women with disabilities and people with disabilities in general is we have to look a certain way. We we can't be parents because we have to, it's hard for us to take care of ourselves as it is. All these preconceived notions and assumptions about how our body operates, and the fact that we can't be beautiful. Yeah, I think it goes back to that whole, idea. So great question.
And also, like, for me, sometimes too, the comparison thing too, going back to that, like often recently, going to friends' baby showers or things like that, and,
Yeah.
or like family members will ask, siblings, oh, when are you gonna have a kid? And like, I don't get those questions sometimes. Like, people don't ask me that, and it's like, because they assume that I won't or I can't. And that is kind of difficult sometimes. I'm like,
Yeah.
I want people to like understand that that is possible for a woman with a disability.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Any other?
Yeah, we have a question from Leah. She stated that she'd like to start an aqua therapy, but she's struggling with how to get out of wet clothes without any help. She's wondering if either of you had any suggestions on how to get undressed out of wet clothes.
I'll leave that to you, Cody.
Well, I think, I don't know your story, Leah, and like where you're paralyzed from. But that's where I have someone help me. I love being independent, but I've learned over the years it is okay to ask for help. It doesn't make you less than. It doesn't mean that you aren't a rock star. But yeah, that's where I definitely have somebody come help. Sometimes I do get out of my chair. It's a lot easier to get out of wet clothes when you're laying down flat on the floor. And I know that's difficult sometimes, especially like at a pool where there's like hot concrete. But definitely finding, a bathroom, putting a towel down. But yeah, it's challenging either way. I mean, unless you sit there with a hairdryer. But yeah, that's definitely where I ask for help. And you can also email me, anybody on this webinar at codyunser@gmail.com. I don't know if you want to put that in the chat box, Emily, for anybody who has questions. And I'm also on social media and stuff. So
we have a question from Rebecca about how did you learn about disability and sexuality when growing up? Did people talk about it? Did you seek out resources? And this kind of I would like you to talk about your Barbie goes to the gynecologist with this, because I think this is a cool project that you're doing and people should know about it.
Yeah. Well, for me, so I became paralyzed at 12. But oddly enough, I was definitely exposed to a lot when I was younger. So it was a question of mine. Am I going to be able to have sex, especially when I got in my teens? But there weren't a lot of resources back then. I only asked a few women that I knew who were paralyzed about, can you feel? What was it like? Did your legs spasm? But I also knew that their experience was going to be completely different from mine. So, I just literally jumped right in. Like I didn't, it's that, having sex is one of those things where there's yes, you can read about it, but you are going to have your own experience that no one's going to know about unless you write about it. So I just kind of, jumped right in. I didn't know if I was going to feel or not. I didn't know how my legs were going to react. I was scared of having a bladder and bowel accident the first time. So definitely, it's one of those things you just got to jump in and do it. But yeah, like REVECA said, I have been kind of educating OBGYN residents around the country. I give a presentation called Wheelchair Barbie Goes to the Gynecologist. I wrote an article about my sort of sexual experiences and the lack of medical education. So if you Google Wheelchair Barbie Goes to the Gynecologist, you'll find that article. But yeah, that's another topic that doesn't get talked about enough, because no one thinks that we have sex. It's too hard. We can't feel. No one can be interested in us because, you know, our bodies don't work properly. All those things. I totally get it. I totally understand it. What about you, Rebecca?
Yeah, I think that I did not have a lot of resources really. And my parents weren't ones to talk about those topics either with me. And I was recently telling someone about the first time that I talked about this with my doctor. And it was the doctor that I had had since my injury, and I was like at 13. It was probably like, I was probably like 17 or 18 when he just kind of came in the room and was like, you know, you can still have sex and you can still have children. It was very, very like awkward and weird. And I felt like it was my dad telling me this information. And then he just like walked out and that was it. But it really did, you know, I ended up actually working for that hospital as an adult at Shriners Hospital for children. And, you know, I made it a point to include like sexual education resources for the teenagers that I worked with, because I wanted to make sure that they had that information as well. And even if it wasn't like, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go. Sorry. I have a bad habit of interrupting.
Yeah, it wasn't like, you know, in-depth information, but it was information about them, just like knowing that, you know, that they still, they were whole people, and this is part of being a whole person, right? And so, yeah. And we have one final.
Oh yeah, one final question.
We have one final question where, Emily, I don't know which one it was.
Yeah, so the question was asking about how do you feel about hair care or the need for accessible hair tools in salons, or just like at home as well, I think was also part of the question.
I just have a PA that does it for me, my caregiver, because quad hands, I just can't really brush my hair that well. I can handle a brush and a blow dryer, but that's about it.
Yeah, so I'm paralyzed from like the chest line down. So my balance isn't that great. So trying to blow dry my hair at the same time as brushing it with the roller is really challenging. The biggest tip, I mean, I just scoot down as low as possible where I can lean back up against my chair so I can get that stability. But most of the time I literally just blow dry my hair and it ends up curly. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, because I know that there's a lot of, in the fashion industry, there's a lot of different organizations trying to make adaptive clothing, but there should be like more adaptive hair product devices or something like that out there for sure.
In one of the groups, there's some groups on Facebook for women with spinal cord injuries, and I've seen several women post about, I think it's like a Dyson, one of a Dyson product that, again, I don't know much about them because I really don't do anything with my hair, but it seems to be really helpful for a lot of women and easy to handle, lightweight, and even for a quad. So,
wow, awesome.
These are all great questions. Thank you, everyone. We're at the end of this event today. I really want to thank you, Cody, for joining me today. This was so much fun. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. But you know, I hope that you all enjoyed.
For people, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and like we said earlier, we do have upcoming topics. Our next one coming up for next month is on sex and disability with Bethany Stevens. And then in December, we're going to be talking about addressing and surviving abuse with Jenna Hardy-Serena. We hope that you can join us. And again, like Emily said at the beginning, a week from now, we will have a small group discussion about body image and self-esteem. And this will be exclusively for women with SCI. It'll be on Zoom, but it'll be smaller groups, not recorded, so that people feel comfortable to share and talk about these topics and sort of unpack everything we talked about today. So if you are interested, please, Emily, if you can put the link in the chat again, please join us next week for that, and join us next month for the next webinar. And this will be on YouTube as well in a couple days for you to rewatch or share. Thank you again, Cody. Thank you, Emily.
Awesome. Thanks, REVECA. You are amazing. You're a rock star. And yeah, I hope to work with you some more for sure. Keep it up. We got to keep this going.
You too. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
All right. Bye. Bye, Emily. Bye, REVECA.